Hi everyone, this is Rob Rice. I'm your instructor for Current Events and Movements, ICS 375. I want us to walk through the syllabus together real quickly, starting with the course description. This course will examine the current political, social, economic, and human events in selected areas of the world, deliberate their global impact, and consider the event's impact on the mission of the church. This is an intercultural studies course. It's not a political science course, not a social studies course, not an economy class, but an intercultural studies course. And so we will be looking at these current events in a global context, and we'll be deliberating how those events fit within these larger trends and movements within climate change and the economy and things like that. And then we'll talk about the event's impact on the mission of the church. And that's what's expected of the course and what's expected of you as well. I have a great love for Cal Baptist University. Dr. Ellis has been providing some excellent leadership over the years, and he keeps challenging us that we are a Great Commission university. And if you've been on campus and looked at the Kugel and in the front, you've seen the Great Commission written out there for you. It's just to go, therefore, and make disciples. And so what we want to be doing is to go into the world and make disciples together. And this course is designed to help us to do that, to help us understand the world in which we're to go to. Let me introduce myself real quickly. I've been at Cal Baptist for a little over 3 years as an instructor, but I've also had different roles in the past. I've lived overseas for the last 15 years, mostly in the Muslim world. That's sort of my main interest, and my expertise is in contextualization within the Muslim context. For our communication, I just want to encourage you to, if you have something you need to find out more information about from me personally, text me first. 951-901-9388 is how you can text me. I can't always pick up the phone, but I can generally respond to a text and set up a time to talk to you. I'm more than happy to sit down and talk to you and try to make myself available when you can be available as well. If you want to make an appointment for lunch, we now have a Chick-fil-A on campus, so I think I'll be easily available at Chick-fil-A during the week time. So we can make appointments. Just please let me know if you need to sit together. It'd be great to have you in class. I love teaching a hybrid course because we have that time. But I know this course is at 8 o'clock at night. I know that we have 2 holidays in the middle of this class, and it's only 8 weeks, so it's going to go really fast. So let's make the most of our time together. Let's talk about the textbooks. Hopefully you've gotten Paul Borthwick's book, Western Christians' Global Missions. It's not an overly strenuous book, but it's there to help us with that final part of our course description to talk about the event's impact on the mission of the church. So we need a guide for that, and this is a guide I think that's really representative of a really strong, positive worldview. The other book we're going to look at is the Nicholas Kristof's book, Half the Sky. It's a book about women's issues. It's particularly important for us because we don't have a section on women's issues within the lecture period, but I think this fills up a lot of information about the issues going on in the world today, and it's really critical for the coursework. Another book that I have written as suggested reading is Patrick Johnstone's book, The Future of the Global Church. I use this for making our PowerPoint presentations. I use it as a guide for looking at the greater global trends. He's a researcher, cartographer. He's a British guy that's done Operation World and created just a whole lot of tools out in the world there for you and I to understand what's going on beyond just our own little world. So Johnstone's book is critical, but you don't need to buy it. It's kind of expensive. It's a little geeky. It's got a lot of maps and things like that. So something I enjoy, and I'm going to use it. So it's there for you, but you don't necessarily have to buy it. Let's look at our student outcomes for the course. Our first goal is to help students become aware of current political, social, economic, and human events in selected areas of the world. So the first objective for us is to track those local, national, and global political, social, economic, and human current events through these news outlets from around the world. And we're looking for local news outlets. So we're looking for newspapers in Colombia, or we're looking, for a newspaper in Mombasa or a newspaper in Cuba. Not just these global outlets like Time Magazine or The Economist, but looking at the local news outlets to see their perspective. And you'll be doing that through your CERs, your current event reports each week. The second thing is to demonstrate an understanding of the context of global political, social, economic, and human current events by recounting relevant information gathered from individual country profiles. You'll be doing that again within your CERs, because what I'm asking you to do is not just tell me about the event, but tell me the background. So if you're reporting on an event in Asia, and it's about the coup in Thailand, give me a little background. Who are the actors in the events? And you'll see that that's required within the CER. And then the third objective is to examine current events through personal stories. And Christoph's book is a great resource for that. The news stories are often great resources where you'll have a story about someone, like the story in India of the two girls who were murdered, who were going out to use the restroom in the woods. And so we learned that, something like 600 million people in India defecate in the field because they don't have a bathroom. And that human story, it teaches us a greater story. So that's really important for us. The second goal is to guide students to develop an understanding of current trends and movements. These are the larger big picture things, and the objective here is to contextualize the current events to global trends and movements. So we'll be asking you to choose economy or climate change and see how that current event fits within that greater movement. We'll talk about the greater movements in our lectures and through our PowerPoints, but we also want you to make that connection. You'll examine current global trends and movements as they apply to specific regions around the world. We'll look at news sources from starting in California, but also Central America or Latin America, Asia, Africa, Europe, the Middle East. And by looking at events within those regions, we will understand more clearly how the world views the bigger events and the current events. So sometimes you might see something that here in America we put on the front page, where in other places of the world they don't even think it's important enough to talk about. The third objective is to present a comprehensive analysis of current events. That comprehensive analysis we're using video to do, and so you'll have two videos that you make. These are full-on reports, 8 to 9 minutes long, that you'll stand in front of the camera and you'll talk about these four the last month of these four major current events that you think are most important, and you'll give us an analysis of that. That presentation skill is a very important part of our student learning outcomes. We expect CBU students to be able to stand up in front of people and tell people clearly what's going on or what they think, or introduce a subject, something like that, where you have to actually present yourself. So you'll be doing this. You'll be on camera, your face on camera, making a presentation. The third goal is to help students to strategize how they in the church can respond. The first objective is to identify biblical responses. Borthwick's book helps us to do that. Also, our discussion board questions will help us to kind of dig a little deeper. We'll talk about it in class together. We'll have our discussion board time in class, but then you can also respond online if you need to. And then students will articulate their personal response. Again, within Borthwick, he's going to ask personal questions, and you're going to have a chance to respond to that in paragraph form. It's not incredibly lengthy, but I hope that you catch a vision or a passion for some of the greater needs in the world by our studies. I think Christoph's book is really going to challenge you, especially at the end. I think he challenges you to take on something, find a cause that you can be a part of. Let's go through the assignments real quickly. The read and response from Borthwick. The questions are at the end of each chapter. You read the chapter, you respond to the questions, you write the questions out, then you write your response anywhere from a sentence to 2 paragraphs, nothing longer than 2 paragraphs at the most. And you need to respond from your own worldview and perspective. We do have a biblical perspective that we use here at CBU, but we expect you to be able to express your worldview also. And you may not share the same worldview as Borthwick or as CBU, but you can understand ours and explain things from your perspective at the same time. And then the reading responses for Christoph is actually going to be writing about characters that you'll encounter in his stories, anywhere from 2 to 4 characters usually in a chapter. And so as you read a section, you'll find those characters that really maybe connect with you the most, and you'll just write a short response to them and explaining their story, but then also the lessons or examples that you've understood from that personal story. And I think you'll find that really helpful. The discussion board responses, again, this is related each week to the topics that we're talking about. And we really want to do that in class, but this holiday schedule, we won't be able to do that. But you need to reflect the information that you heard in class or in the PowerPoint, so that I can tell that you're discussing something not from the back of your brain, but from the front of your brain that's already been exercised. The current event reports, 4 current events each week, 4 different news sources. The news sources, like if we're talking about Latin America, I mean, can be from any country in Latin America, or in California, from any city in California. We have lots of news sources here, but they need to be local news sources, and you can find them in the worldnewspapers.com. You can find them if you dig into bbc.com /news/world. You'll get to country profiles. You can pick a country, and within the country there's tabs, and one of the tabs is media. Within the media tab, it lists English language newspapers. Sometimes you'll get to world newspapers and you'll want to report on something, and you'll only find local language newspapers, but through BBC you can find English language newspapers. And then you can also use our Twitter feed to find sources. Our Twitter feed for the course is CBU ICS 375 with the password current events. And we follow different news sources from around the world, from different regions of the world, and that can be a helpful tool for you as well. You'll be reporting within a wiki link these 5 or 6 different things: the news source, the country of the event, relevant country context, current event synopsis, actors in the event, and current events impact. When you're doing California, you won't be doing, obviously, the country of the event, relevant country context, but the rest will still be applicable. Also remember that international news sources are helpful for you to understand maybe an event, but they're not what I want you to report on. So don't use The Economist, USA Today, CNN, BBC to report on an event. The next thing is the State of the World videos, and you'll be making 2, one midterm and one at the end. And they're based on current events of the last 4 weeks. You're going to tie that event to particular global trend and to the impact on the mission of the church. It is probably not something everyone's comfortable doing, but it's something that everyone can do. And I've seen people do a tremendous job for this. You'll also need to write an outline of the presentation, including your sources and the resources that you're using to make your analysis and to describe the mission of the church. Those would be the textbooks a lot of times, I would hope, for that. Okay, there is a rubric provided. The assignments are basically, you look at current events and discussion board is about 360, and then the readings 300, and the videos are 340. So that's sort of the way I see the course points working together. And I think it helps that we have several different assignments. So you miss one, it doesn't kill you, but it does lower your grade, obviously. So you want to try to get everything turned in. The grading scale is pretty standard. What I would say is that 900 or 93% means 930 points. So if you get 930 points, you get an A. If you get 929 points, you get an A minus. You see, it's just math. So that's sort of the way I'm not going to be able to round up because it's not fair to put that on me, right? So you just need to be able to get the points on your own. And it's pretty simple. I hope that we have a lot of A's in the course. You see the course schedule. The courses are due, or the assignments, excuse me, are due on day 3 and day 7. The discussion board oftentimes will be done in class, but when it's not, it's due on day 3. The other day are day 7, and then you look at week 4. There's no reading, there's no current event report. It's just the video presentation. And again, the same week in week 8, there's no reading and no CER, just the video presentation. The expectations of professionalism, most students seem to do that well, but I just really encourage us to try to avoid communicating like we do on Twitter. You know, just kind of step it up a little bit from there. The other thing I would talk about is the late assignments. If you're going to turn something in late, if you've missed the deadline, you need to contact me first. We need to make sure that we're on the same page. That you understand, you know, I'm going to take off so much points, or I'm going to receive this conditionally, or whatever the reasons are. You need to offer me some sort of explanation on why you're late. If it's 1 in the morning and you call me, that's a bit awkward. So you need to make sure you write it down so that we have it, you know, in writing, so we can talk about things. If it's just a conversation, it's difficult because there's a he said, she said. So make sure we write that down, and just make sure you contact me in advance. And then the final thing I want to look at is Yale Global Online Magazine. They're under suggested online resources. This is a resource that I use a lot. The link for that is yaleglobal.yale.edu. If you'll start there and you'll look through their topics on the menu section there, I think you'll find some really great ideas or what we're trying to follow sort of in our course. So they're sort of the model for the topics and sort of the choices we've made. Well, it's all the time I have to go through the syllabus. Thanks for your attention. I hope to see you in class. And